All right, welcome back. We're gonna get back to our discussion of the top 25 plus a few extras. Um, Give me a sec to get prepped here. Get everything set correctly. Okay. It should be working. Okay, yeah, it is switching over. It's just slow. Okay, so let's get back over to team info here. We finished covering Clemson. So now we're gonna get into our fourth SEC team. We've covered Auburn, LSU, Georgia. So now we'll kind of be able to start painting a picture about the, kind of how the SEC is going to shape up. My take so far has been that, I feel like Georgia might have just a little bit more talent. LSU has some holes. Auburn has some holes, especially if they deal with injuries. But let's go ahead and take a look at Alabama. Alabama has not been human controlled, so they definitely have not been the Alabama that everybody is used to in this league. Let's see if their new GM can kind of right the ship. They've won bowl games, but I mean, 10-3, 9-4, 7-6, 6-7, 3-9. None of this is Alabama caliber. They've kind of taken a dip in their prestige. I mean, they're all the way down to an 81 right now, which puts them kind of middle of the pack among the elite teams. So who's gonna right that ship? I mean, let's take a quick gander at the higher prestige teams and see who leads in that department right now. So we've got Clemson number 1 with 94, LSU, Oklahoma with 92, Auburn 89. I mean, all of these teams in the top 25. Ohio State sitting outside the top 25, which that's interesting. Maybe just a sample can get that ship righted, as Ohio State's been another one that just really hasn't been very good. Notre Dame, they're in the top 25. They annually are. Wisconsin, despite being a CPU team for a long time, has actually done quite well for themselves. Vikings rules controlling them now. But as we see, I mean, we've got everything except for Virginia and Louisville in terms of the top prestige teams pretty much covered by human ADs. So that's pretty good. We step down pretty low before we start running into lots of CPU. And that's kind of how you'd expect it to go, as the human teams tend to perform better than their AI-controlled counterparts. So that being said, let's just take a quick dive into Alabama's roster, see what they're dealing with for the season. Hopefully they've still been able to manage some good recruiting classes. It kind of looks like maybe that might be the case. If we can get this to show me stuff in the right position. Yeah. They've got a great sophomore QB in Michael Homer. He rates up at the top in everything, it looks like. He's strong, fairly agile for a standard drop back QB. Good arm, smart, accurate on the short throws. He doesn't get tired. His intangibles might be a little suspect, especially his sportsmanship and disposition. But you're not going to see a lot of penalties out of the QB position anyway. He does all right leading the team and is a team player. I don't think he has any tags. I mean, he is a conniving man-child, so that's that kind of fits with the intangibles we're seeing there. But he's talented. I mean, if anybody can get away with it, you better be this kind of a player. If you're gonna be kind of a goofball in the game. So that looks good. QB, they look pretty solid. Even after them, they've got Trent, who's coming in as a freshman. He looks like he can carry the offense pretty well. Decent intelligence, accurate on the short throws. I mean, they've got 3 guys that are accurate in the short passing game, and then they just kind of range by intelligence and arm. It looks like Peak and Trent swap arm. Running back, they've got Cody, who's everything you'd look for in a running back. Standard height, weight, 6'0", 199. He's a junior. Last season didn't run very well in his spots, but AI controlled team, and I expect that to improve as we go into this season. They've also got Willie Price, who's a speedster. They've got looks like he's their strongest back. Musser, and Musser's got decent speed for his strength and muscular build. Decent hands out of the backfield. They're going to be just fine. Looks like they're even good. That what's nice about their guards is they've got 2 strong ones. But even Hennessy, who's a little bit weaker, he can pass block and run block well. Their endurance isn't the highest, so they're probably going to cycle through a lot of their guards. They're definitely going to need to be 3 deep at least. And it looks like they're fairly in that vicinity, 3 to 4 deep. The running game, especially, I mean, they've got Sims that can fill in a little bit. And then they've got Hennessy that can kind of swap with Hoffman and Cerna. But it becomes a concern when you look at the endurance. They might not be able to play full games. Hoffman, he's got the best of the bunch. But Cerna's concerning. I mean, he's definitely going to need a lot of rotations in order to stay fresh and at his best when he's in the game. Tackles, they're solid there as well. They've got Garcia, who can move pretty well. He's a little bit undersized. Doesn't have the best strength, but he's great blocker. Same with they've got Clay, who's a little bit bigger, 6'7", 304. Real strong guy. Great pass blocker. He'll probably get a lot of time at left tackle. But that's another thing. You look at a little bit of their endurance, and maybe it'll be a concern. That's less concerning at tackle than it is at guard. The tackle's definitely a lot deeper, and they can rotate a lot more guys through there. Center, they're looking solid there, strong. Rowe doesn't move the best, but I don't expect they really need him to. He's good in run blocking. He'll basically just take up bodies right there at the center position. Try to take out some of those D tackles, but you're not going to ask him to pull or move or do a lot. But they can sub in guys like Crane or Mallory that can move a little bit. Their tight end position, not great. I don't know if Alabama features a lot of tight ends, but they don't have much option. They're not strong guys. They're not real big. Their blocking is all right for a lot of them, but they're just not very strong. A few of them can catch passes all right, Adcock and Gee, but you're not going to expect a lot of production out of the tight end position from Alabama. Wide receiver, they do have a great one. They've got, he's an NFL prospect, one of the best in the country, James Cox. Just a great receiver. He's kind of struggled in the situation Alabama's been in for the last couple seasons. But I expect him to have a big year this season. Let's see. Yeah, he's a deep threat, so he can catch balls deep. Great speed, agility, hands. He's a smart player. His competitiveness is a little suspect. So you might not win a lot of those jump ball situations. But he's going to make up for anything he's not going to put forward in effort. He's got the talent that he really can do that. He's going to be playing in the pro league, that's for sure. They've also got Warren Long, who's kind of, another just great senior. Little bit more competitive, so he's going to go up for those jump balls. And what's nice about him is he's got the speed and agility, but he matches that with a 6'4", 207 frame. So he's just, he's going to be a monster in the passing game. So if they really can get this working, Alabama's got the QB. They've got Homer. They've got the running game. They've got the line play. When I look at the squad outside of tight end, that's the only real weakness. But there's a lot of teams that just, don't really do a lot of featuring of tight ends. And Alabama might be one of those teams. But they've got two of the best wide receivers in the conference. Good backs. They should be good on offense. I expect them to take a step up this season. Looking at their defense, they've also got talent there. They've got Carlos Short, who's a great corner. He might be a little a step slow on some of the elite wide receivers, but when you start looking at some of Alabama's guys, you start to see why they might be performing a little under their talent level. Because I've seen a lot of guys that I click on are really kind of average on the intangibles, where a lot of the more elite teams, I'll see a lot more leaders and great work ethic players. So that might be a part of why Alabama has kind of underperformed what their talent level has been, because they've got some of the highest rated players on their squad. I mean, they have a 94 wide receiver, which is rare to see. That's got to be if not the top rated wide receiver in the game right now, it's got to be top 2 or 3. Same with their quarterback, Michael Homer. That's got to be top 2 or 3. But you wonder where the leaders on the squad is, and that might be what bites them. They've got all this talent, lots of guys that are going to be playing on Sundays, but maybe not as much leadership, and maybe a lot of these egos kind of get in each other's way, and that's been a part of why Alabama's struggled. Reese hasn't really been a factor in that, though. He's one of their top players on the defense. He's the leader. Great leadership, great work ethic. He's a team player, great in the locker room. Doesn't get a lot of penalties. Great tackler, speed. Decent agility, decent strength, 6'3", 224. That's a good size for a quality linebacker, especially at that speed, and he plays the position well. So he should be good. That's another, I mean, really great player right there on their defense. I mean, they've got stars. They're featuring stars everywhere. Linebackers, corner, they've got great players. Wide receiver, they've got great players. They've got great players at tackle. They've got great running backs, and they've got a great quarterback. So looking at Alabama, I expect them to have a good season if they can get some of these egos and some of these guys to gel and play together rather than playing for themselves. I mean, they've got defensive end. They've got Dwayne Ramey, great guy over there on the end position. They've got Reno, quick, plays the position well, strong, sure tackler, great hands. He'll sneak in and pick off a few of those passes. Their safeties might be a little undersized. Not at strong safety so much, but looking at Lashley and Reno, 5'11", 177, and 179 respectively. The size might be a concern, but I like what I see in terms of talent on Alabama's offense. It's just a question if they can put it together and get some decent game plans together and perform more to their talent level. Instead of, I mean, they're coming off a 3-9 season, so they've really got a lot of work to do to turn it around. But people see the talent and think they can do it, so it remains to be seen as we get into the 2016 season. So moving on to, wow, that was one team and it took me 15 minutes. I need to move faster. So we'll get into Louisville. We're not really going to talk about. I actually controlled this team for one season. They've always been good. They're kind of like that Wisconsin. Wisconsin's no longer under CPU control. But they're one of those teams that kind of just been hanging around in the top 25 for a few seasons. They've had good quarterbacks. It looks like they took a step down this past season, though. But they've won all their bowl games. They have some 10-3 seasons, mixed with some pretty average seasons. So we'll see if they've got the talent. This is actually what I think I controlled them in the 2012 season. So let's see if their recruiting class turned out all right. I'm just going to take a quick peek. Nothing real long. Get through this in a couple minutes. So they've got good quarterbacks, good running back. I mean, yeah, they've got the talent. Just a quick one over. Line plays all right. Tight ends are good. Well, I liked tight ends. I might have recruited a few of those guys. They've got a good receiver in Fenner. Cornerback play is a concern. After their kind of front line, not a lot of depth. Linebackers are good. I mean, they've definitely got the talent to compete. The only sketchy part, just depth a little bit at corner. But good squad. Definitely, it's CPU controlled, so I don't expect them to be a top 10 team or compete for the playoffs or anything like that. But we had a few CPU teams sneak in this past season, so it's very much a possibility in our game. So let's step on to number 13. So number 13, we got Texas, who has been being Texas for a few seasons and kind of underperforming. They've had some talented rosters. They had a talented quarterback for the last 4 years in Lester Waite. But they just, we'll take a quick peek at their history. They've been good, but not great. They haven't gotten into the playoffs yet, and that's an expectation at Texas. I mean, at many schools, you'd look at this and say, "Wow, yeah, that's solid upper trajectory." They kind of peaked. Lester Waite was a freshman. I think it was this season that he was starting to set records, but then he got hurt. So yeah, that would have been freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Or no, yeah. So it was actually 11-2, and that was the best season. Was Lester Waite's freshman year, 11-2. He got hurt in that season. They were competing for the playoffs, and then he just wasn't the same afterwards entirely. I mean, he's still a great quarterback. He's still moved on to the pro league. He dropped to the third round, and there's probably some concerns about that injury just because his play before and after were so starkly different. Texas, there's been rumors that they're going to be playing a little bit more of a running attack, and that might bode well. Some of the criticisms against Texas has been, they might try to pass a little bit too much, and that's getting from the fans. That's getting sometimes a little bit away from some things Texas has done in the past historically. But looking at their QB play, we know that's going to be a bit of a concern. They don't really have big-armed, intelligent, accurate quarterback. I mean, they kind of have a mix and match. They're smarter quarterback, not a great arm, not the most accurate. Their guy that's the most accurate doesn't have the best arm. So they're kind of in a tough spot that they don't really have a quarterback that really can just do everything for them. And that's probably where the rumors are coming from. There's just nobody that's really impressed in this quarterback group. They've got Harold Schmidt, that's a senior. He's an old guy. I mean, that could be maybe a guy that gets some reps. Lucero maybe, but Lucero, he's not the most accurate. He's a freshman. And, he's definitely inexperienced, and it shows in camp. So they might not want to go with him full time. He could be the main starter, maybe sophomore year. I mean, he's definitely a pretty talented quarterback that'll get some time, but none of them are ideal. The running situation, running back, they're kind of in the same deal. They could patchwork together some different looks. They've got speedy running back in Bostic. They've got stronger running back in Kaiser. He's a step slower, but he's pretty well balanced. They're not really going to do a lot of passing out of the backfield. But Pennell can fill in all right in some spot situations where he might have to catch some passes. The other guys, they're okay, average hands. They'll catch maybe a few passes, but you don't want to go at them too often. And then guard play. They've got Eric Gaines, who's good, strong, speedy, can move well for a guard. He's a little bit undersized. And they're another team that they're going to have to patchwork. They're definitely going to be platooning, run blocking, pass blocking from the guard position. But they've got some talent in the Big 12, especially. I think they can do all right in that spot. They've got a couple decent tackles, especially in pass blocking. Historically, that's what Texas has done is passed. So Garcia is great as a left tackle in the passing game. Um, they've got Fellows is decent to rotate in. Same with Childs. Really they're four deep at tackle pretty easily. Maybe five or six even. Yeah, I mean, really all these guys at tackle uh, could play in different situations. I mean, and you're not going to miss too much out of them. Center, they've got a decent guy, not the best pass blocker, and that might be kind of why you end up seeing, maybe why their passing game hasn't been incredibly successful. Is they've been so heavy pass, and then they've kind of end up in a funky spot, like in their guard position. They don't really have a lot of great run blockers. They've got one great pass blocker. A couple, pretty average guys. Same with tackle position. I mean, they've got a couple guys that can do it well. But one elite run blocking tackle. Oh yeah, I guess they've got a couple. So they've got a couple layers. They're all right, but then you look at their center position, and that's a problem. They do have a couple on the roster, but there's a hole in the pass blocking there from the center position. So I'd be curious where a lot of their sacks come from. Maybe it comes from up the middle. He is strong though. Even if he is undersized for a lineman, he's even a little undersized for a center. Centers usually a lot of times 290, 295, 300, that kind of thing. And they don't have a lot of depth there either. So if they start having centers go down, they're going to be rotating in. Maybe some of these guys have experience playing center, and they'll be able to transition over all right. Tight end, they've got good tight end play, good hands, not tons of speed, but Covert and Medeiros, they can move just fine. They really can give you just a few different looks. Same with wide receiver. They really do have great wide receivers. A lot of wide receivers have been attracted to coming there, just because of their air it out style. So they've got Jared Knox, and he's your prototypical everything you'd want in a wide receiver. He could maybe use a couple more ticks of agility, but speedy, great hands, and he's 6'4", 209. So it's, just a guy that's really everything you'd ask for in a receiver. And I think he actually did catch a good number of passes. Yeah, I mean, 60 catches for 1,000 yards, average 17 yards a catch, caught 9 touchdowns. He did drop 9 passes. Expect that to go down. He's a sophomore this season. He's got a little bit of experience, but they've also got Dahl on the other side, who's another great receiver. I mean, he 47. I mean, he had an average of 26 yards a catch a couple seasons ago, 13 yards last season. He has a few drop balls as well, which is concerning. He's also out of Utah. I didn't 10. That's awesome. Speedy, taller, not quite as big, but 6'2", 199. That's prototypical wide receiver size. They're solid, and they've got depth. They don't have a lot of speed depth beyond Knox and Dahl. So if one of those guys goes down, they might struggle in their kind of air it out method. I expect some elements of that to stick around. They do have Eldon Rawls. He's not speedy. He's just got good hands. I expect some of their kind of air raid style to stick around in some element, even if there is rumors of going to a more traditional run style. Maybe they'll go like a West Coast or pro style this season. Great corner play. They're not going to struggle there. They're one of the deepest teams in the country at that position. So their defense should be solid for them. Linebacker, they're good there. They're good on, the D line. Defensive tackle, solid. D end, they're pretty solid. I mean, they don't really have like one super elite guy, but they've got a lot of guys that, you're not going to miss a lot going through any of their D ends. Free safeties, they've got two solid free safeties. Michael Montgomery, he'll probably get the majority of the reps. 84 speed, 76 tackle. He's fairly strong for the position, agile. They're not the fastest, but you don't often need a ton of speed out of your safety position. Strong safety, they've got John Burnett will probably play the most. You might see Mortensen get some time. Just depends, but they should be all right there. They could use a little more speed and, probably experience here. A little more sure tackler, some better hands. But, Mortensen can play. He's not going to pick off a lot of passes, and he might miss a few tackles. But he's got speed. He doesn't have the best agility, but he's quick. He'll be able to get to ball carriers quick. He'll play in the box pretty well. Kicking game, that might be iffy. They've got a guy with a big leg that's not as accurate, and a guy that's accurate that doesn't have a big leg. So between the two, they might be able to get some solid play out of the kicking position. And then they've got punting, should be fine. So Texas, it's just a matter, can they put the game plan together? They do have the talent, especially on offense, to be competitive. But it remains to be seen if they can get back to, especially they're missing a season without Lester Waite's gone. Their quarterback position remains a question mark, and that's the most important position on the field. So that being said, I might not expect Texas to do as well, but if they can get that run game working well for them, they just might. After that, we're going to West Virginia. Take a look at their history, and I think they're under relatively new leadership as well. Maddie. So 8-5 last season. They kind of look to be on an upward trajectory. They lost their bowl game, but 8-5 last year, that's a success after 5-7, 6-7, 6-7. So let's see if they can improve, and they're gonna have to do better than 8-5. I think to be the 14th ranked team in the country, I think that's gonna be a 3 or 4 loss team. So especially coming from their conference. So I think they're gonna need to win. They're going to need to stick around that 2 or 3 losses to be worthy of the 14 ranking. Taking just a quick peek at their schedule. I mean, it's pretty tough. There's, some toss-up games: Texas, TCU, Oklahoma, and Baylor. Texas State. They've got Oklahoma State traditionally has been a good team in this league, so they might resurface. We'll see. Baylor, I think, is under CPU control, and if they are, that's a better chance of getting that win there. Oklahoma last few seasons haven't been quite up in that top 10 ranking, and then they've got TCU and Texas to close the season. But I really could see them coming into Week 10 with one or two losses even. If they do that TCU game, I mean, we're going to be circling that on the calendar, but it's a matter of how those teams perform as well. So, being said, let's take a look at their roster. So they've got decent quarterback and Crooks, good intangibles. I mean, he'll kind of do everything for you. Pretty straightforward. He's not elite in any category, but he's good in a lot of categories. And he's got good intangibles, so he can lead their offense. They've got running backs, good mix of speed and size and strength. So they can give you a few different looks from the running back position. Guard play might be a position of concern. They've got some decent run blockers, but I'm going to worry about their pass blocking from their guard position just a little bit. They've got Nicholas Hoy, which he'll do a good job, but they can't expect him to do it extremely well. He doesn't move well. He's slow. But he's a sure tackler as long as he can stay in front of his man. But you'll have situations where he might get stuck. He's a slow guard, so the guard plays a position of concern. Tackle, they have some good, strong guys and decent size. And they can kind of mix and match. It looks like they've got some decent run blockers, but again, pass blocking is going to be a concern from the tackle position. They'll probably throw Wilkinson out, maybe as their starting left tackle, and rotate some guys in for run blocking. But they don't really have a tackle that can kind of do both run blocking and pass blocking, but they are strong. Big guys, and so that could be enough for them. Center position, they've got Oliver, strong. He should be one of the better centers in the conference. And then tight end, they're pretty solid as well. Not the fastest guys, but sure-handed, strong, decent blocking. They've got one guy that can pass block, and that's really all you need from the tight end position. Most of the time when the tight end's in on pass blocking or on passing downs, they're not going to be blocking anyway. So really having one tight end that can do that's pretty decent. Wide receiver, they've definitely got some talent there. They've got Gillespie. He'll probably be their main guy. And he's speedy, got good hands. He doesn't cut extremely well, but they can kind of give you another look. They've also got Lusk and Michael coming in as freshmen. They've got Grossman who can fill in some time. Pretty straightforward player. They've got size. Cornerbacks, they might be a step slow at the cornerback position. Their main guys are 86. They can move well. Decent agility. But, cornerback, that might be a little bit of a weakness for them. Especially against more elite teams. I mean, they're going to be able to get through most of their conference. And most of the games these corners are in, they're going to be the most talented corners on the field. But you start getting into the playoffs and talking about, winning conference championships, you don't really have anybody truly elite at the cornerback position for West Virginia. Kind of for linebacker, they have a little more depth at linebacker. A lot of guys that are very similar. So they're going to get decent play out of those positions, corner and linebacker. But they might struggle against some of the more elite teams, just lacking speed at the corners to cover some of those, 90, 90, 91, 90, 6'4" receivers that, you're going to see out of the all of the elite teams, have at least one of those wide receivers that are tall, fast, agile, and can catch the ball. Defensive tackle, they look pretty solid. Well, no, actually, that's going to be... Oh, no, yeah, they do look solid. Yeah, they do look solid. Solid D-tackle play. Again, nobody truly... they've probably got Darling. He's elite. Crabtree's kind of right on the verge of elite. Defensive end, they've got some decent guys over there. They're not the strongest at the D end position. That's probably the biggest glaring thing I notice is even their bigger guys aren't the strongest. They've got one undersized guy playing at D end. Well, a couple actually. So even their big guys aren't very strong. So they might get pushed around. Again, it's another one of those. In a lot of games, some of these players will be the best players on the field, but getting up against those elite teams, they might struggle. Safety play looks like they're going to be decent there. They've got an elite guy in Mead, who's a sophomore. He didn't start every game last season, kind of played spot minutes last season, but he's a solid guy. And he should start this season. And then kicking game, they look like they'll be fine. Punting, they don't have a powerful punter. But they should be fine. West Virginia looks like a good team. They look comparable to Texas. They look like they have some talent. I would say they kind of have a better option at QB than Texas in Crooks. Texas kind of has guys that are, not... Crooks is a B plus in 3 spots that are important for a quarterback. And Texas, their QB play is kind of a little bit spotty. But that being said, yeah, I think West Virginia, they could compete for the conference. But there are some great teams in there. Let's see if they can improve and get to, 3 or 4 losses this season, and stick in that top 15. Moving on to number 15. Who's next? So 15, we've got Baylor, CPU team. They've been elite on their squad. Cincinnati, I don't expect they're going to do the same thing. I don't think we're going to see them in the playoffs this season. Maybe, but I think they're a little overrated this season. But we'll see. Baylor, I don't expect to stick where they're at either, being, with CPU control. Florida's always been solid. We'll take a look at them. I think they'll be solid again. Noah's definitely been a great GM. They've been in the playoffs. They trade blows back and forth with the Florida State rivalry. Yeah, they've won big bowls. They've made the playoffs. Won 2 playoff games. Got into the Final Four. Last season they kind of took a step back, but I don't expect that to remain. I think they'll step back up to the Florida we're used to seeing out of Florida. So their quarterback play, they've got Silas Saunders, who's decent. They've got Gomez. Saunders doesn't have the skill, but he's got a decent enough arm. He's an intelligent guy. He can move in and out of the pocket pretty well. All their guys seem like they can move pretty decent. But they don't have a truly elite of elite quarterback. Something's making noise. I can't. Oh, it must be this. Fed, you should. I can hear your background of your mic, so you should mute your. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Decent enough running backs. Nobody truly elite from their running back position, but they do have some decent guys. But that's never really been the driver for Florida. Florida's kind of, their defense has always really been what's made them truly elite. They've got good linemen that go deep. Decent center play. Decent, not great tight ends. But they do have great wide receivers. Definitely fast. They've got some burners. They've got, couple guys. Yeah, but they should be all right. They'll diversify and give you a few different looks, a few different sizes of receivers. Some that can cut, some that'll blow by you. But they don't really have that truly elite 90. That's kind of what I look for in elite receiver is, 90 speed, 90 hands, 90 agility. But they are decently strong enough. They have a guy that is pretty close in Tillman. He's an 87, 90, 83. But we'll see. We'll see what Florida ends up doing. Like I said, they end up, a lot of their strength usually comes on the defensive side of the ball. Their game planning is always stellar. They are kind of not very deep at corner, but they do have speed there. And that's kind of the most important thing at corner. They do have great linebackers that are fast. That really is kind of what Florida has always predicated themselves. Lots of speedy linebackers flying at you, getting lots of sacks, lots of pressure on the quarterback. And they balance that with good defensive tackle play. They've got elite defensive ends, elite defensive tackles. They've got a pretty elite free safety. They've got speed from the position. Strong safety, same thing. They're elite. Oaks and Sean Young, both strong guys. Oaks obviously coming in as a freshman. But Florida, they should be up there, but they're in a tough SEC. I mean, this is the 5th SEC team I've covered, so we do often see, 5 teams in the top 15 for the SEC, but do they have the talent to get into the playoffs? I don't think they do. I think they're a bit underwhelming in a few positions that they just won't compete. Running back, especially. I like Georgia a little bit better. I'd say I probably like LSU. LSU has more truly elite stars on their team, especially at offensive positions that matter. I mean, Silas Saunders could, but his numbers weren't great. He's looked skilled, but he didn't put up. He's 16 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. A little inaccurate for a lot of teams' tastes, honestly. So Florida, I think they'll be up there, top 20, top 15 team. But I don't think they'll get into the playoffs this season. So we're getting into UCF, and they've kind of been hanging around. They went to the playoffs last season. They won a playoff game. They've kind of been threatening for a few seasons. They've pulled in a lot of great talent. I mean, Florida's been a hotbed. You can find talent throughout. And they've gone 11-2, 10-4, 8-5, 11-3, dropped down to 7-6 last season, then 13-2, and got into the final four of the playoff. Expect that to continue. I mean, even my team, Utah, has pulled some pretty great transfers from UCF that have started that I'm like, wow, these guys are transferring from UCF. So they've got a decent history. They've gotten good play out of their quarterbacks, even if they don't have the most perfect QB. But they've got, Peterson's coming in. They've got Moen, who had a little bit of time, but they're going to be figuring out how to replace the talent they lost at quarterback. So it's going to be between probably Moen and Peterson. I might expect. I can say what I'd do if it was my team. I mean, this would definitely be the starter. Great skill, makes the right reads. He's a team player, good leader. That's usually what I look for most at a quarterback, is those two spots. I don't often worry about sportsmanship and disposition. Like if I'm going to lose anything, I wouldn't worry about that as much because you don't see penalties out of the quarterback position hardly ever. So I can deal with a little less sportsmanship and disposition, but I like having leadership and the team player. And he's got a good arm, decent intelligence, decent accuracy. I mean, honestly, the guy he reminds me of, even with his speed, is Tyson Bravo, who started for Utah last season, and he was rated as an 87 overall, but he ended up getting drafted, went in the second round in the most recent pro draft. Despite having very, very similar look to this Peterson fella. So if it was me, that's who would be getting the nod. Just because Moen, not the smartest and doesn't have the best skill at the position. That's another thing I look for in QBs, is the QB skill. And then Payne's not very accurate. And then you also deal with Walling, who's not the smartest either. Even if he does make the right reads and play the position well, he does still make some dumb mistakes. Running back, they have one kind of speedy guy. Lang's probably gonna get the majority of the reps, I would guess, this season. But they're probably going to diversify and play a few different backs for sure. Maybe French gets a little bit, but he's not the quickest. They do have some decent strength, but they don't really have the elite of the elite running back. But they've got, Lang should be fine. They should get good play there, especially in the conference they're coming out of. All of these guys are probably going to be the most talented guys in the conference that they're coming out of. So decent tackle play for their conference.